welcome to 6gun Guitars Luthier video series. In this one we are going to talk about making custom pick guards. Custom pick guards are great because any type of veneer that you buy or any type of wood that you've got, you can thinly slice it, run it through a planer, bring it down to the right thickness that you want, and you can make a really nice attractive pick guard that is a nice alternative to the black or white piece of plastic that most guitars have. If you're going to make an acoustic guitar for someone, you're making an acoustic guitar for yourself, this only takes a little bit longer, so that way almost every piece on there is custom and is handmade. And again, being able to pick out the selection of wood that you want, you can control exactly how you want the pick guard to look. You can match it to the guitar, you can contrast it to make it stand out. I mean, there's a lot of different options out there. The one that I'm going to cover right now is how to make pick guards out of sheets of veneer. Here's a couple of them that I've made. These are made out of walnut veneer with a slice of birch veneer in the middle and some walnut veneer on the bottom. And what this does is it allows you to sand back a little bit along the edges and expose that birch to put a nice little white line around the pickguard. Just a little flair, you know, a little addition. Walnut's kind of nice looking. It's pretty basic though. You can get some pretty intense veneers out there. Purple Heart. You can get several different types of burl, which really have an interesting figure to them. My recommendation for the veneers, the bottom layers of veneer aren't going to be shown obviously, so just get some basic veneers, some birch, some walnut, something that's not too expensive, or something that color contrasts the way that you like. And then for the top one, go ahead and splurge and get yourself a really nice piece of burl, piece of Purple Heart, cocobolo, just anything that's really nice and really stands out there, because this is the part that everyone's going to see. And we'll take you over to the workbench now and show you how to make a little press and laminate some veneer and cut these things out. The process for these is fairly easy. Again, get yourself some veneer sheets. In my case, I've got two of them that are walnut, and I've got one of them that's birch for my middle slice. And what you're going to do is arrange these things in a sandwich so that they alternate, and that's what's going to wind up being glued together to be used as the baseboard for cutting out these things. Another neat little trick is to make sure that this piece is big enough that you can take two pick guards and lay them over on each other like this, so that way for the same amount of wood you can get two pick guards out of it, which is really good. The other thing that you're going to need to do in order to glue this together, because obviously, I mean, you can tell from these things that there's some bends and there's some bubbles in here, and this wouldn't make a very attractive pick guard. So you're going to get two pieces of nice flat wood, I'm using MDF in this case, that are the same size as this, with hardly any overhang at all, just because, I mean, in my case it's pretty tight, so if you use a little bit bigger wood, you don't have to worry as much about the overhang. But again, anything that's hanging outside of the press when it goes is not going to be sandwiched properly to be used as a pick guard. The other thing is a little bit of wax paper. I put some wax paper over here because there's going to be glue spill out, and this is wood and so is this, so if that wood glue spills out, it's going to get all over and you're never going to get your pick guards out of here, and you're going to have a nice big MDF sandwich that you can throw out. So first thing to do is lay down your bottom sheet. Then come back with just regular old Type on wood glue. The way that I do this is I cover it over with a really, really good chunk of glue, and I'll come back with my fingers and I'll spread it out. And you want to spread it out so that way that absolutely every last square inch of this wood, or every last speck of this wood on the top, is covered with that glue. And you want to, you know, go ahead and put a little extra on there just so that way, in case there's any squeeze out, in case there's any spots that don't quite get enough, when you press it, it'll kind of work its way in. Next, take your other sheet, put it on there, and give it a little press so that way it kind of adheres to that glue. Do the same thing. Come back with nice wide sweeping action to distribute that glue as much as possible, because it's easier to do it with a glue bottle than it is to do with your fingers. Back and forth, get it covered. Again, come back with the fingers and really work the edges really good. Spread everything out and get it full and covered. Then comes your cap. Put the top piece on here, and again, now this piece is going to be the one that everybody sees. So this is the one that you want to be nice to. This is the one that doesn't matter if you spend a little extra money on. So you get all that on there. It's in the glue sandwich. You come along and put your other piece of wax paper on the top, because again, glue can go both ways. Cover it with the top of the other piece, and then you want to take a series of clamps and clamp this entire system together. And you want to space the clamps pretty evenly so that way they get a hold of all the ends, but so that way they also get a hold of the middles too, because we want to make a nice even set of pressure that's going to distribute that glue around in there in any spots that need it. And also too, we want to make sure that we knock down any of the bubbles that are in there. So come along. I usually use between about 4 and 8 clamps. It kind of just depends on how big the system is. The one that I've got right here is probably going to be good with 3. But you glue these things, get these things all in here together and glued with the clamps on them. And what I like to do first with my clamps, just so that way it doesn't spread anything out or move anything, I'll get them all on there with just a little bit of pressure, so that way, you know, there's enough clamping pressure on the other 5. If I really torque down one, it's not going to go anywhere. So once you've got them all on here, and check one last time to make sure everything is nice and even, because you don't want to slide the sandwich up, otherwise you might not be able to get as many pick guards out of it. Go ahead and come back now to each one of these individual clamps and really go ahead and torque it down about as hard as you can. And what that's going to wind up doing is really pressing that glue into all the little tiny nooks and crannies and getting it spread out really well, so that way when the piece does come out, it's flat and there's no bubbles or no pockets or anything like that that would make an unattractive pick guard. So I usually set this thing aside for you know, probably about a day, just because of the wax paper and everything like that. Drying time sometimes is a little bit inhibited just because there's not a lot of airflow, and you know, it takes a little bit longer. So I like to give it overnight at least, just to make sure that it's done. Now when it comes out, it's going to look plain like this, plain like these guys. And again, if we cut out the shape like this, where the pick guards are just barely away from each other, you can get 2 for 1 out of these pieces of wood. So you just got to kind of be organized with ways to cut things out. I lay these out using an existing pick guard shape. This one was from my grandfather's old Gibson guitars. You can do any shape that you want. You can get one of these. It's really easy. They're just a few bucks if you order them. Or what you can do if you want to make your own shape, draw it out on a piece of paper, cut it really nice, and then trace around it to make your final shape for your pick guards. So again, they come out just looking rough, just regular old wood color. And what I do is I cut them out, then I bevel the edges, and I put a coat of True Oil on the top of them. And what that's going to do is bring out the color of the wood. It's going to make it look a lot nicer. It's going to make it pop. And also, too, I use True Oil on the guitars anyway, so everything has a nice even sheen together, which is fantastic. I would recommend, if you're going to put it on a guitar that you're lacquering, that you would also spray lacquer this, just so that way you don't have this one type of sheen on your guitar, and then you look over to the pickguard, and because it's an oil finish, it looks a little duller. You definitely don't want that. You want it to be uniform. There's 2 methods of attaching these. This one on the bottom here, this has 3 holes drilled into it, little holes, you know, just in the corners. And this was done to mimic the original pickguard that I have, because that was screwed in with 3 little screws. Another method is not to drill anything on them, and on the rear side you use double stick tape. You definitely want to buy real legitimate double stick tape. Don't roll over pieces of tape into loops and call that double stick tape, because it's not. But if you get that tape and get it right along the edges and go in short little strips around the curve, so that way you can get it as tight into the edges as possible, work your way all the way around, then run a few strips across it until you run out of space to do it. You really want to coat this thing. Take it over to the guitar, line it up the way you want, and press it against the face of the guitar. What this is going to do, especially with double stick tape, is it's going to allow these to be replaceable, which is really nice, because this is designed to take the brunt of all the pick strokes. So once this thing gets destroyed, it's very easy to take a small butter knife, take a small shim of wood, anything tiny that you can get under there without messing the guitar surface up, and very, very slowly kind of work your way through, and you'll pop this thing up and off the surface of the guitar. At that point, it can be thrown out, or if the customer wants to keep it for, you know, posterity's sake, they can keep it. And then it's very, very easy to take another pickguard, cover it with tape, put it on there, and replace it. The thing I like about the tape versus the screwing is when you screw something into the guitar, unless you're going to cover those holes with the new pickguard, you're going to have to use the same one. So either you use the same one, you use the same holes, or you make another pickguard that's bigger, and you either tape it or screw it over that one. But what happens when you want to go from the bigger pickguard back to the smaller one? Now you've got holes to deal with. So again, using the double stick tape, it makes it so that way it doesn't mar the surface at all. You can use any size pickguard you want, and even if you decide that you don't like the way the pickguard looks, you can pop it right off, and you never have to worry about using it again. You don't have to worry about holes. You know, holes are something that, especially on the actual guitar surface, are not fun to repair, and they're never going to look the same as they used to. So my recommendation is double stick tape. And again, 3 pieces of veneer sandwiched together, smooth it out with some sandpaper, radius the edges to give it a nice little profile to it, come back with some True Oil, or come back with some lacquer, put a nice finish on it. You can even run it over a buff if you do a lacquer, give it a nice shine, and then install with double stick tape on the guitar. And you've got a custom made pickguard that probably, I mean, when you don't count in gluing time, probably takes an hour of your life to create, and you can go from a dull piece of black plastic on the front of your guitar to a really nice custom made pickguard in any type of species of wood that you desire, or any type of species of wood that the customer asks for.